everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be using a Hero Arts fancy die from a My Monthly Hero kit from a couple months ago to create this kitchen scene card. I didn't know before I cut it out that the oven door opened, so I thought that was really cool that you could put something inside of there. This tile stamp set is also from the same kit, as well as that piece of white cardstock. So the fancy die actually comes with 6 extra dies. So you'll see me snip those off with some wire snips. So my friends that freaked out that I used scissors will now be happy because I bought myself a pair of wire snips. So I'm using them to take off the extraneous dies. Well, once those are taken off, I am going to play around with them and see kind of how I want my scene. Again, here I don't know that the door opens yet, and for some reason that totally changed my mind of what I wanted in the oven. I wanted the pie in the oven and not the turkey, and then I put the pot and the kind of the saute pan or the saucepan on the burners. So I'm just playing around with it there, trying to figure out what I want to do. I also ran those through my Cuttlebug, or actually I ran the smaller dies through my Honeybee Buzz Cutter. I think that's what you call it. The little one that sits on your desk, with some of the fallout pieces from this one. The large fancy die, I used my Cuttlebug, and as you can see here, not all the pieces came out. It is, my Cuttlebug is so old. It's probably 15 years old, if not older. I do have replacement plates for it. I think it was I want to say it was the Evolution or it was the Genius platform that I had that has the magnetic platform and the they were kind of like self-healing mats to go on top of it, and it is so old and frayed. I think I need a new one. So I got to figure out what to do with that because the pressure doesn't always get applied very evenly. So I need a new one. Or I could probably just use my Gemini Junior that I have that I literally never use because it's on the other side of my room. So I got to figure that out. So after I cut it out and the pieces that didn't want to come out, I used my scissors and a craft knife to go ahead and cut those out. I am going to color this in with Copic markers. So the fancy dies, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can color them in with whatever coloring medium you want. I did a birthday one, the birthday fancy die, with same thing with Copic markers. You can use pencils, watercolor, distress oxide, distress inks. You can ink up a background and then cut it out from that if you don't care where specific colors need to go. Or if you're doing maybe if you're doing like a shadow background, you can cut this all out of black. So there's a lot of different things you could do with this, but I decided that I was going to color it in. And while I was coloring it in, I would talk to you a little bit about the coloring and then kind of do a craft and chat because I don't really think we've done that in a while. When I went to do the floating shelves, I can't remember who did it. I think it might have been Kelly Taylor. She was showing how she does wood grain. And I attempted to do that and it didn't work out. So all I did was take a little bit of a darker brown Copic marker and put some lines in it to make it look like the wood grain. So I think it came out fine. If you didn't know that I was trying to put kind of the knots in there, you never would have known that, it wasn't the way I had intended it to be. So I am just going to use a bunch of different Copic markers to go ahead and color in this scene. I wasn't really sure, didn't really have a color scheme when I started this off. I was just kind of filling in colors with what I wanted. I also guess I should start off with that god-awful tan line that is on my right hand. I have an Apple Watch and it was upstairs charging and I didn't even realize how bad the tan line was until I'm watching this back and thinking, oh my goodness, that is so bad. So I was down the shore this weekend, I was down the shore last weekend, and then I think I might have gone the weekend before that. I really hadn't been in a long time. Most of the summer I was at home and didn't didn't really make it to the beach. I think I only made it to the beach before these past couple weekends. I think maybe once or twice. Every major holiday, one of my family members got sick with COVID and they were already down the shore, so I couldn't get down there. It's really been kind of a very strange summer between COVID in my family and then having to work weekends occasionally. Actually, most weekends I've had to work at least one of the days. And I feel like that's all I always say is that, work is crazy, but it really is. Unfortunately, I took on somebody else's desk and kept half of mine, so I'm doing like a job and a half right now. They're telling us that relief is coming at some point, but I got the lion's share of the extra work a couple months ago, so I'm just really trying to keep my head above water, and if that means working nights and weekends, that's what I'm doing right now. So, it really has not been the most enjoyable summer for me. That's just the way things work out. I really have been trying to get down into the craft room. I am working on redoing rooms in my house. I'm kind of taking it one room at a time, going through everything in the room and getting rid of things, purging, new paint colors for some of the rooms. I think it really started last year with the bathroom renovation. We redid the entire master bathroom. My brother-in-law came and, ripped everything out, and then he did as much as he could, and then I had a couple other people come in and do some of the things that he couldn't do. So that was really great. And then, I have some ideas of things that I want to do, and the craft room is definitely on that list because it's just a disorganized mess. I have so much stuff everywhere, and I really need to purge some stuff and really start to sell some things because I'm running out of room very quickly. So, that's just kind of the way it's been, is that, if I'm not working, I'm kind of working on the house. So it really has not been a relaxing summer. I'm hoping that things will slow down a little bit. The big thing we want to do is to redo the garage, pull everything out of the garage, put a floor down, and have some of the storage things in there for my craft shows, because a lot of the craft show stuff, once I'm done with it, it comes back into the house and comes back into the craft room because there really isn't anywhere else for it to go. So I have a lot of craft show things sitting in my craft room, taking up space that I could use for other things. So, just like everybody else, I feel like the house is always a work in progress, and the craft room is probably the biggest. So I've been on Pinterest a lot trying to look at new things. I want to redo the entryway. I want to redo the closet in the front. We don't have a ton of closet space or storage in here, so that's why getting the racks and things for the garage is going to be so beneficial, because really storage is key in here. So that's pretty much what has been going on. It really is, it really has been kind of a fast summer. I don't know about you guys, but the summer has really, really gone by super quick. And I can't believe that it's almost Labor Day weekend already. We are planning a girls' trip to Cancun in a couple of months. And that's exciting because none of us did anything for turning a number that I don't even want to say. And so, because of the pandemic, a lot of us didn't get to celebrate that big milestone year. So a couple of us girls are going to go on a delayed. One is actually turning that age in October, so we're going for that. And then the other three of us are going to celebrate later birthdays, so a couple years later. I'm excited about that, and I haven't been on a girls' trip in a really long time, and we used to do it all the time. For another one of our big birthdays, we went out to Vegas, and we partied and really had a good time. But now we're a little bit older, and we're doing a little bit more upscale. We actually we stayed at Hooters one time in Vegas, which was absolutely horrible. That was a horrible trip. I guess the highlights or the lowlights of the story. We stayed in a room where they actually had the air conditioning unit missing from the hotel room, and they were renovating the hotel next door. So we had dirt and stuff fly in the middle of the night when it was a little bit windy, and they had a fake palm tree in the room, and it had dust and dirt all over it. And then the one bed had dust and dirt all over it because the wind came in and it just, shook the fake palm tree. We drug it out into the hallway, and it was still there when we left later on that week. We actually got a different room because we were like, you can see the outside. It's not really somewhere you wanted to stay. But anyway, so we did like things like that. We did, on the cheap, we did those kind of trips. And this one is going to be a little bit more of a grown-up trip, a little bit more expensive, and a little bit of a nicer, actually a lot nicer hotel. So, we did things like that in our early years, and now we're doing a, much more grown-up trip now that we're all older. So that's kind of the plans for now. My family's planning a trip for next year. We try to do every other year, a big family trip so that we can all go together. This one will probably be the first one. This will be the first one where all 4 of the girls, we haven't gone on a big family trip since Mila's been born. So all of us. So that'll be a lot of fun. So have some things that I'm looking forward to. Nothing in the immediate future though. So I'm going to just be taking a couple days here and there. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all that's going on. So I'll get back to the card and back to the coloring. So you can see I'm just going back in with some Copic markers. These are, I believe, some E markers and then some N markers. So I wanted this to be like the pepper shaker. Well, I started putting the dots for the pepper in, and I didn't like the way it looked. So I kind of went back and fixed my mistake, and then it looked okay. And then I wanted the top to kind of match it and went back in with more of that N8, and it didn't look good. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was thinking. So I am going to try to fix it here. But this is where you can get a little bit creative. If you don't want some of this stuff in your scene, all you have to do is cut it off. Like if you don't want the floral at the top and you wanted to put, say, I don't know, like a pie on the shelf or whatever, you could easily cut some of that stuff off and just put one of the cutouts on there. Super, super easy. So if you don't like the way something got colored, instead of starting all over again, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh man, do I have to cut that out again? And then I can paste it over. If you really wanted that in the scene, you could definitely do that. You could cut something out again. You could cut see there, I'm going to cut the pepper shaker off, and easy peasy. You would never know that that was supposed to be there. If you didn't see the die or if you didn't see this video, you would have no idea. So that's a really great way to customize it. If there's something in the scene that you really don't want there, like if you didn't want the toaster on there, you could definitely just easily cut that out, and you wouldn't even know. So now I'm just trying to figure out what colors I'm going to go ahead and color the rest of this in. I had no color scheme in mind as I was going in, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. The last coloring on the scene that I'm going to do is coloring in the cabinets, and I decided to use a ruler, but this was probably a bad idea because I actually got some of the dark gray marker onto the oven. I will fix that in a little bit. I do go back in with a colorless blender and take some of it out and then just work the color back in, and then go back to the C2 marker and color in the oven just to make sure that it looks a little bit even. I believe this is an N8 to go over the sides of the cabinet, and then to go over the fronts, I used an N6, I believe. So you can see here, there's kind of that odd white border around it, around the whole fancy die. It's the only thing that I don't really like about these fancy dies. I feel like you need a frame to go on top of it, because I'm never sure, like, am I supposed to color the sides? I always end up getting a little bit extra color on there, and then I'm like, well, what do I do with the rest of it because it's white? So I think cutting out a frame for it makes it look really, really nice. So I did take a piece of gray 110-pound cardstock, cut it down to 4¼ by 5½ inches, and then I made a 1/4 inch frame by using my Fisker's trimmer and just cutting down the sides and then the top and the bottom. I just kind of eyeballed it, and then I got as close as I possibly could. And then if the corners didn't actually meet with each other, I used my scissors just to cut up and then snip over and then take and make the frame. If you do have dies that are able to create a frame, these would be a great place to use them. So after the cabinets are colored, I am going to be doing some heat embossing. There is a cast iron embossing powder that comes with this set, and I wanted to use it on the hood vent. So I used the embossing cube that came with, I guess it came with this set. Use it on the hood, and then I sprinkled over some cast iron embossing powder on top of it, heated it up, and then while it was still hot, I went back in and did a second coat on this. I wanted it to be a little bit thicker than what you would if you just did it one time. So if you do this very quickly, you can do it without putting any more embossing powder on there, and embossing ink, and the embossing powder will stick to it and melt. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to heat it up again and do a second layer of it. I like the way it looks. Sometimes it gives it a little bit of a thicker look. So that's what I was going for here. And now we're going to be stamping out the tiles for behind all of the shelving. So it's not going to go all the way down to the bottom. Even though I have a piece of cardstock that measures 4¼ by 5½ inches, we're only going to use part of it. I did use my MISTI corners to hold that piece of paper into place, or to measure exactly where the paper would go, because with red rubber stamps, you don't want the paper to be like shoved into the corner like you normally would with stamps, because it won't give an impression on all of the sides. So I used that MISTI corner to help me, and you can see here's the frame, and I'm going to put some glue onto the fancy die because the gray frame is actually thicker than the white part of the fancy die. So I'm going to just attach it on the fancy die side. I'm using some Honeybee Be Creative glue, and I'm just going to place that down on top of it. And the scene is really starting to come together. I'm really excited about this. I do make a little bit of a mistake, which isn't a huge deal. When I go to put glue on the card base, or the card front to put the tile pieces on, I forgot that I wasn't going to put tile down at the bottom. So you'll see that in a minute. I'm just taking a piece of scrap cardstock that I have from when I made Madeline's birthday card, and I made the bleachers. So I thought that this is the closest thing that I had to kind of the steel that you would have inside your, I guess it's like a steel rack, or the oven rack that you'd have in your oven. You can see that I'm very clearly an expert cook, that I know what all of these objects are, but you can see that, so I just used that, and then I glued the pumpkin pie to the oven rack. These pieces, the pumpkin pie, as well as the pots and the pan that I put onto the stove, these were cut out from scraps from the fallout pieces from this fancy die, and I used my Honeybee Be Creative little buzz cutter. Or it's not Be Creative, I think it's just called a buzz cutter. Honeybee buzz cutter, cutter bee, something like that. To cut these pieces out because they're tiny dies, and it sits right on my desk, and it's super easy to use. I love it. And I colored them with Copic markers and then attached them, and that is the gluing of the objects to the front of the scene. So I glued the burners, them behind the burners, and now I love this tile. I love the way this looks behind the subway, kind of the subway tile. So I'm going to make a mark where I want to cut it, because I don't need that whole entire piece. And then I'm going to run that through my trimmer, cut that down, and then we're going to glue it. And you'll see where I make the mistake with the glue right here is that I accidentally put glue all the way down to the bottom, not the oven door, but just like the bottom of the frame. And I realize I don't need it down that far, but I've already put it on there. So it is what it is. I was going to pop this up onto some foam tape. And then again, for some reason, I decided against it. I just didn't really want dimension in this card. I don't know. I thought I did, and then I decided against it. So now I'm just placing it down onto the tile piece, making sure that none of the white is showing on the sides. If it was, I could have trimmed it off. You can see I still have glue on the bottom, so it's not bad. I did not glue the oven door shut. That was the only thing that I was afraid of. And now I'm going to glue it onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch black card base so that when you open the oven door, you see black in the back. So it's kind of like looking into the oven. I was super happy with the way this came out. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, enjoyed the scene card, enjoyed story time. Let me know your thoughts on the card down in the comment section. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to let me know. And I will see you guys again real soon for another video. Bye!